It is the president who directs the the foreign policy of the United States. That's always been the case, by the way.
You can't overrule their decisions. Do you outrank the special envoys and ambassadors? Do they get your input as
as an example?
Do they care about your input, or do they go straight to the president?
There's no time in which the president is presented an option by one of us at the exemption of everybody else. It depends on the portfolio. But in every one of these portfolios, we have a team approach to this, which is the way the system is supposed to work. It's not the way it's always worked.
That right there. That's the moment Senator Jacky Rosen realized her ambush was falling apart. She walked in with a script, a gotcha, a viral moment queued up and ready to fire. Rubio trapped between a pardon and a military operation. The perfect hypocrisy play. But Rubio refused her game. He refused the yes or no trap, and what he did next didn't just defuse her attack, it flipped the whole hearing on its head. Roll the full clip first. Then stick with me, because I'm going to break down exactly why this was so devastating, and why the legacy media is burying it.
Roughly 400 tons of cocaine into the United States. Cocaine that contributed to the deaths of tens of thousands of Americans year after year. Yet the president and his cabinet authorized a military operation to capture Nicolas Maduro in order to arrest him for virtually the same crime. So, yes or no, because I have a bunch of questions here. To the best of your knowledge, was Hernandez convicted of trafficking approximately 400 tons of cocaine into the United States?
I'm not involved in the pardon process. I can tell you.
No, I'm just asking if he...
Yeah, but I don't do yes or no. I don't play games. This is not a game show.
Do you know okay, so I'm just going to tell you
So I can answer your question because I know what you're getting at, but go ahead.
He was convicted. I know.
The president felt that he was unfairly treated. I can't give you much insight because I'm not involved in the pardon process.
Would you not concede? Can you not understand how the American people and how the world are clearly going to be frustrated by the hypocrisy of this when one man is convicted and pardoned and another man captured, and how it undermines the United States' credibility on the world stage?
But the difference is that, again, I can't opine on the specifics of his case because I wasn't involved in the pardon, but he was not a sitting office holder. He was not even the president of Honduras when that decision was made, either to convict him. The difference between him and Nicolas Maduro is he was actively engaged in narco trafficking. It was an ongoing endeavor.
I think it does undermine our credibility, but I'm going to move on to some foreign policy decision-making here, because despite the fact that you famously or infamously have numerous jobs in the administration, your Secretary of State, your National Security Advisor, it is increasingly unclear who's actually directing U.S. foreign policy under President Trump. We have a Special Envoy Witkoff. He's reportedly conducted Russian-Ukraine talks in Switzerland beyond your awareness. He and Jared Kushner have been described as managing the president's Gaza plan. Meanwhile, Ambassador Barak is leading on Syria policy, while Special Envoy Boulos is appearing to lead on our Africa policy. So I have to ask you, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you, are you the lead for U.S. government on foreign policy?
No. The lead on U.S. foreign policy is named Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States. On the individuals you've described, these are very valuable teams. We have if I can answer, because I think it's important. It's a legitimate question. I have the distinction, but I think both the benefit of being the National Security Advisor and the Secretary of State. As National Security Advisor, my job is to coordinate the interagency function of national security, and that involves foreign policy. So I speak to Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner in the case of Gaza and now Russia, probably 10 times a day. We have multiple meetings and coordination. All of it is we build a team, we gather facts, we present options, and then we take them to the president. It is the president who directs the foreign policy of the United States. That's always been the case, by the way.
You can't overrule their decisions. Do you outrank the special envoys and ambassadors? Do they get your input as
an example?
Do they care about your input, or do they go straight to the president?
There's no time in which the president is presented an option by one of us at the exemption of everybody else. It depends on the portfolio. But in every one of these portfolios, we have a team approach to this, which is the way the system is supposed to work. It's not the way it's always worked. You have had in the past tensions between the National Security Council that became operational and the Department of State. In this particular case, there's not much conflict between the two because it's the same person. And we basically, what we basically try to do in every one of these unique missions is we create a consensus team around it, and then we present the president options together. options. It's the president's decision, nobody else's. There's no overruling here. The president makes the decision. Our job is to present him options.
Shouldn't they report to you? Shouldn't there be a line of command and a line of transparency?
They report to me every day.
Where does the buck stop?
But they report to me every day in terms of keeping me apprised of what's happening. I give advice. I give, in some cases, direction. They involved heavily. For example, the special envoys rely almost exclusively on State Department personnel to assist them in all of their efforts. For example, on the Board of Peace, we helped them position the entire gathering last week and all of the work that's going to happen now. On every one of these issues, it's not linear. No single individual other than the president has the ability to dictate our foreign policy. Our job is to come to a consensus view on the best way forward. Where there are disputes, those are presented to the president, and he makes...
All right, folks, let's slow this down and walk through what actually happened in that hearing room. Because if you only caught the clips the mainstream media pushed out, you got the sanitized version. You got Rosen looking righteous and concerned. What you didn't get is the full picture. The premise of her question, the traps she laid, and the calm, surgical way Marco Rubio took each one apart. This wasn't a shouting match. This was a chess match. And Rosen brought a checkers board. Senator Rosen walked in with one goal: manufacture a viral hypocrisy clip. The setup was carefully designed. Juan Orlando Hernandez, former president of Honduras, pardoned by President Trump after a cocaine trafficking conviction. Then the U.S. military operation targeting Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela for, in her words, virtually the same crime. She wanted the yes or no answer. She wanted Rubio trapped, because in her mind, either he agrees and undermines the administration, or he dodges and looks evasive on camera. That was the play, and it was a good play on paper. But here's where it unraveled. Rubio refused the false binary. I don't do yes or no. This is not a game show. That's not a dodge. That's a man who's been in politics long enough to recognize an ambush and refuse to dignify it. He didn't get flustered. He didn't apologize. He said, in effect, I'll answer your question, but I won't let you dictate the terms. And right there, Rosen lost control of the room. Then Rubio does something Rosen clearly wasn't prepared for. He engages with the substance. He draws the distinction she didn't want drawn. Hernandez was a former president, a private citizen when convicted, no longer in office, no longer a threat. Maduro is a sitting strongman, actively running an ongoing narco-trafficking operation from the presidential palace. Those aren't virtually the same crime. One is a closed chapter. The other is a live, breathing national security threat pumping poison across our border right now. That's not hypocrisy. That's the difference between history and reality, and Rosen had no comeback. She moved on. And that pivot from Rosen tells you everything you need to know. When a senator abandons their strongest framing and rushes to the next topic, that means the first one didn't land. She knew it. You could see it. So she pivoted to the who's actually running foreign policy line. Witkoff, Kushner, Barrack, Boulos. The implication being that Rubio is a figurehead, that the administration is chaotic, that nobody's really in charge. Another trap, another setup. And again, Rubio didn't flinch. The lead on U.S. foreign policy is named Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States. Boom. One sentence. Clean, direct, and it reframes the entire premise. Because here's the truth Rosen didn't want to acknowledge. That's how it's supposed to work. The President of the United States directs foreign policy. Always has. The Secretary of State advises, the National Security Advisor coordinates, the envoys execute specific missions. That's not chaos. That's how a functioning executive branch is designed. Now pay attention to this part, because this is where Rubio flexed something most cabinet secretaries can't. He reminded Rosen, calmly, without gloating, that he holds two jobs, Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. He talks to Witkoff and Kushner 10 times a day. They present options together. The president decides. That's not a broken system. That's a team. And the fact that Rosen was trying to paint it as disorganized only proves she either doesn't understand how foreign policy coordination works, or she was hoping the audience doesn't. Here's what makes this exchange so important for regular Americans watching at home. For decades, the Senate hearing room has been a political theater stage where Democrats corner Republican officials with loaded questions and run the clips on cable news for a week. Rubio just showed a different way to handle it. You don't have to get angry. You don't have to get defensive. You just have to know your material cold and refuse to accept the enemy's framing. That's what competence looks like. That's what preparation looks like. And let's not miss the bigger picture here. Jacky Rosen wasn't really asking about Hernandez or Maduro. She was trying to damage the administration's credibility on foreign policy at a moment when America is projecting strength abroad for the first time in years. The cartels are being targeted. Maduro is on notice. Our enemies are recalculating. And instead of backing the American position, a U.S. senator walked into a hearing and tried to create a viral moment to undermine it. Think about that. Marco Rubio didn't win that exchange because he had a better zinger. He won because he had the facts, he had the clarity, and he had the confidence to trust the American people to follow a real answer instead of a sound bite. Jacky Rosen walked in with a script and walked out with nothing. No viral moment, no gotcha, no scalp. Just the same talking points she brought in the door. That's the difference between performance politics and actual governance. And that, folks, is why this clip matters. If you appreciate breakdowns like this, no spin, no corporate media filter, just the real story of what happened in that hearing room, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And drop a comment down below. Did Rubio handle that right? Should he have been harder on her, or did he play it perfectly? Let me know what you think. God bless you, God bless America, and I'll see you in the next one.